Israel says it has killed a Hezbollah commander in fresh airstrikes against the militant group in Lebanon. The Israeli military targeted Hezbollah's missile and rocket chief, Ibrahim Kobeissi. Lebanon says air raids have killed 550 people in the last day. Global leaders are calling for an immediate end to the fighting as fears grow of an all-out war. Well, for the latest, let's bring in journalist Karim El-Gawhary in Beirut. Karim, this is the second day of bombardment in Lebanon. Give us an idea what it's like where you are.
Well, here in Beirut it's relatively quiet. We had one air attack in the southern suburbs of Beirut targeting a Hezbollah commander. But in the south it was relentless bombardment all day long along the Israeli-Lebanese border. I went to the city of Sidon some hours ago. That is the most northern city in the southern parts of the country. That is a place where people are escaping to, a place that is considered to be safe. And I went to one of the schools that is open for people in Lebanon, for the refugees. I was talking to them, many of them really traumatized. Some of them were telling the stories how it was yesterday to escape. They said at one point, one family told me there was a bombardment in front of them and in the back of them. And she said she was very, very scared for her children. They're sitting now in this school, basically not knowing, are they going to be there for a few days, for a few weeks, for a few months. So it's this feeling of total uncertainty that is also a problem for the people. And especially the children, one doctor told me in the school, are really traumatized. We met one, the little Hussein, he's like 2 to 3 years old. And since yesterday, since he escaped from the south, he didn't say a single word. So you can see how people are affected. We have, of course, until now, according to official numbers, more than 560 victims, people that died. The interesting thing is that the number of a quarter of them are women and children, which is countering the Israeli claim that they're only and solely striking at Hezbollah positions, at Hezbollah fighters.
Now, another Hezbollah commander was killed in the latest airstrike. That's according to a source close to the group. In which way do these assassinations increase the pressure on Hassan Nasrallah?
Obviously, it's a big problem for Hezbollah. It's a problem that is going on not only since a few days, but since a few weeks. And there is a striking difference between the last war between Hezbollah and Israel that I had to report on. That was in 2006, when Israel had some technological surveillance systems, but they didn't have any human intelligence. It seems like now that it's a very, very different situation. It seems that the Israeli intelligence infiltrated Hamas. They know where their commanders are, and every day now we have news about another commander being killed in a very targeted Israeli airstrike.
Now, Hezbollah is backed by Iran. What's Iran's position on the developments in Lebanon?
Well, Iran is obviously very concerned about its ally, Hezbollah, here in Lebanon. They, of course, have strong words towards Israel for what is happening. But in reality, there's not much right now they can do in order to support their ally if they don't want to be pulled in an all-out war, and they seem to be not ready to do that. So the other question is Hezbollah using its full potential until now in this war, or is the potential partially destroyed, or why are they not using all their rockets? Also, that might have something to do with Iran, that Iran is telling them to hold themselves back. But this is, of course, all in relative speculation.
The journalist Karim El-Gawhary in Beirut there. Thank you very much, Karim.
You're welcome.
Now, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country's military would press on with its aerial bombing campaign in Lebanon.
We will continue to hit Hezbollah. I say to the people of Lebanon, our war is not with you. Our war is with Hezbollah. Nasrallah is leading you to the brink of the abyss. I told you yesterday to evacuate the houses where he put missiles in the living room and rockets in the garage. Those who have missiles in the living room and rockets in the garage will not have a home. They endanger your country. Free yourselves from the grip of Hezbollah.
Benjamin Netanyahu speaking there. But for the latest from Israel, I'm now joined by DW correspondent Emily Gordine in Jerusalem. Emily, do we know how long these attacks against Hezbollah will go on for and whether a ground offensive is actually on the cards?
Well, Gerhard, that's very difficult to tell at this point. What's for sure is that we're not seeing any signs of any de-escalation right now. Quite the contrary. We're seeing that Israel is intensifying its military operation in Lebanon. The IDF's chief of staff today said that Israel will, in fact, intensify its offensive action in Lebanon, and he insisted that the situation called for, quote, continued intensive actions on all fronts. Now asked whether this could lead to a ground operation, the government spokesperson did not respond, but he also didn't rule it out. In the meantime, we saw about 300 rockets launched from Lebanon to Israel. In the meantime, Israel has also continued its aerial bombardment of Lebanon. The IDF says it's targeting rocket launchers, weapon sites. And in Beirut, we also saw that an Israeli airstrike killed a senior Hezbollah commander. In the meantime, the death toll in Lebanon has been rising to over 550 people, a lot of them also children and women. And given the current situation, that number is likely going to rise in the coming days.
Let's talk about the timing here. What are the reasons for Israel to carry out these massive attacks right now?
Well, we are nearing the anniversary of October 7, when Hamas last year attacked Israel, which ultimately led to the war in Gaza. Now, essentially, one day after the October 7th attacks, in solidarity with Hamas, Hezbollah in Lebanon started striking the north of Israel. Now, ever since then, there's been a sort of almost daily exchange of rockets between the two sides in the north. And that has meant that the Israeli residents living in the north of the country have not been able, first of all, they had to be evacuated. And for almost a year now, they have not been able to return to their homes. And that's now putting a lot of pressure on the government to change the situation, to deal with the problem of not being able to return the residents to their homes. And ultimately, this also, you have to remember, this has also caused a lot of economic damage. I mean, if you take a city like Kiryat Shmona, which is a city of normally 26,000 people, it's been reduced to 3,000. That does a lot of economic damage to a region. And so what we're seeing right now, though, is that Hezbollah is not prepared to enter any negotiations until there's a ceasefire deal with Hamas in Gaza. That is nowhere in sight. And what we're essentially seeing right now is Israel's attempt to decouple the two fronts from each other. And it's doing so by putting military pressure on Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Now, how much support is there from the Israeli public for this operation?
Well, I think when you talk to people, of course they are worried. They are worried about what it will mean if there is an all-out war at the border with Lebanon. And at the same time, people are also very frustrated at the situation in the north. The fact that for almost a year now, residents have not been able to return to their homes is unacceptable, is what a lot of people are telling us. And that is, like I said, putting a lot of pressure on the government. So there is a lot of support for the aerial bombardment that we're seeing right now. But that could shift if there is, if Israel's defense forces decide to launch a ground invasion into Lebanon, because that will be a lot more dangerous, it's a lot more risky, and it will likely lead to a lot more deaths among soldiers, and that could shift support for this military operation, ultimately.
DW correspondent Emily Gordine there in Jerusalem for us. Thank you, Emily.